Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right on into it. All right, folks, we got a contract problem with Jim Harbaugh, and he's not ready to sign just yet. He wants some changes made to the contract. We also got to talk about Carson Beck and how much money he wants to play next year. Holy crap. So this is pretty interesting. Let's start out with Carson Beck and all the news about him and all the scuttlebutt. And this is on the site Dog Nation, and this is by Mike Griffith. Some of you folks might remember Mike Griffith. He used to be in Knoxville. I believe he covered the Vols. Now, this is talking about Carson Beck, whether or not he's coming back or whether he's going to declare himself eligible for the draft. It says Georgia is trying to put together a financial incentive package to keep him. It says talk of ongoing player negotiations everywhere is to be expected. It says it only makes sense that Smart wants to know which UGA players intend to come back, etc., which ones are going to go in the portal, obviously at quarterback position. Now, let's realize we already know that Brock Vandagriff has already hit the transfer portal, and he's already committed to Kentucky, which I think that's what Kentucky's doing now. The last couple of QBs they've had, whether it was Will Levis or last year they picked up a fella from North Carolina State, and now a backup at Georgia, but he was a 5-star. So Kentucky's figured out we can't recruit 5-stars to play quarterback, but we can find them on the bench at other places. And that's the beauty of the transfer portal. 5-stars shouldn't be sitting on the bench.
Nobody puts baby in a corner.
Especially at the quarterback position, but there's one football. You know, if you're a running back, that's fine because you can get plenty of plays in. But quarterback, no, there's one. So it makes it difficult. Now, there's talk he wants a lot of money. It says talk of Beck landing a deal worth more than $1 million is not all surprising when you consider a good quarterback in the portal cost $1 million, $1.52 million right now. It says sources claim that Caleb Williams had a deal approaching $4 million to play his final 2 seasons at USC, an offer UGA would not match, but that was in 2021. Now, a lot of these quarterbacks will wind up at the Senior Bowl, and juniors can go there as well, but executive director of the Senior Bowl said the only reason Beck hasn't been invited to the Senior Bowl is out of respect for Kirby Smart trying to keep Beck at Georgia. And you're seeing this all over boards, the SEC rant. I've seen it in several other places that what he's actually asking for is $4 million. It talked about a YouTube video that was Aaron Torres, who was quoting a web page talking about Carson Beck has told Kirby that he wants $4 million to come back next fall. And this fella says, I don't know if that's true. He said, that's pretty ballsy on Beck's part. So yeah, $4 million's a lot.
That's like saying, I want a bajillion dollars.
But it's not crazy. If Caleb Williams was getting close to that, now that could have been through various forms, but you can ask for whatever you want. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get $4 million, but I could see a guy asking for that much. You know, he was really good. Let's take a look at his stats. I mean, only Jaden Daniels had better stats than him. When you look at it, he was second in the SEC. A completion ratio, he had a higher completion ratio than Daniels. His yards per pass weren't as good. He had 22 touchdowns and 6 interceptions, whereas Jaden Daniels had 40 and 4 interceptions. Daniels played great. His QB rating is super high at 208, whereas Carson Beck is a far distant 166, which is still darn good. But Jaden Daniels deserves to win the Heisman. I mean, he just played fantastic. I mean, 40 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. That's even better than Hendon Hooker did last year, and Hooker wore it out. But Carson's, look, he's second in the SEC, and he's a winner. And if you watched him in the first part of the season, he wasn't very good, but in the Auburn game, he found his confidence, and you saw him hit several beautiful passes on that incredibly important drive at the end where, look, Auburn had Georgia and Alabama beat, and Carson Beck and their terrific tight end beat him there at the end. And then somehow Auburn rushed 2 people. They rushed 2 people on Jalen Milroe. You've got to get that guy off his platform and make him just throw it up in the air. Rushed 2 people and wound up throwing a touchdown from 35 yards out.
This is the dumbest trick. Why don't you ever call me dumb again? What a dumb trick.
Which is the worst defensive call I've ever seen in my life, to rush 2. I couldn't believe it. I was screaming at the TV going, what are you doing? This is insane. You got to put some pressure on the guy. And sure enough, he picked out his little spot. And I think the receiver did some offensive interference. But look, everybody was looking at the football. The refs weren't looking at anything else. And it looked like he caught it clean to me. I didn't see the little push till they did the replay. But still, you can't give that opportunity. You've got to rush Milroe. get him off his platform and make him just throw some piece of junk up there and then either intercept it, knock it down, or, whatever happens, happens. But don't let a quarterback sit back there and pull a Tom Brady on you. But anyway, I wouldn't be shocked if he asked for that amount. I don't think he'll get that. He'll probably get somewhere in the neighborhood of 2.5, if I had to guess. He's really good, and he deserves some good money. But $4 million's out of line. It just is. That's too much. But I could see him getting 2.5 without any trouble. Or he could go pro, and he'd probably be the 5th quarterback picked. He's good. He's got a great arm. He's not a huge dual threat guy, but he will burn you just the way that dadgum Stetson Bennett did. Stetson didn't run a ton, but when he did, he killed you. And that's what Carson Beck does. When it's 3rd down and 6, you'd better watch him, because if it's not open for him, he just runs right up there and grabs it. And that's so frustrating to a defense. He did that to us multiple times. Anyway, while I probably believe that he's asking for 4 or something close to it, I don't think he'll get it. I don't see Smart going down that path or their NIL, because that's going to create a real problem for them long term. And Georgia's not in a position to get pushed around. So anyway, that's sort of what's going on with Carson Beck. So he may very well be asking for $4 million. And now we're going to talk about Jim Harbaugh and his contract extension. Man, this Jim Harbaugh Michigan thing is just an onion, peels back. I mean, it's just so many layers. It's unbelievable. So much to talk about. FootballScoop.com, Zach Barnett has come out with a story. It says Michigan reportedly preparing major extension for Jim Harbaugh with a catch. It says Michigan wants to see how committed Harbaugh truly is to Michigan. It says the long-awaited contract extension that Michigan's been putting together, and we've been hearing about this for about a month, finally has some details. Sports Illustrated Richard Johnson reported Thursday Michigan's offering Harbaugh $11 million a year over 5 years on the condition that Harbaugh puts a commitment in writing that he will not pursue an NFL job this cycle. That's a lot to ask from Jim Harbaugh. He has done nothing but interview with NFL teams every off season. I think he wants to go back to the NFL, but he's not sure. And it probably would have to be a situation where he's sort of the GM and the coach, and most owners don't want to do that because they want to stir the pot because they're geniuses when it comes to football. That's why they're looking for a coach. Anyway, I'm looking at you, Las Vegas Raiders, and Al Davis's kid. You've done a great job. Anyway, they want a commitment in writing that he will not pursue an NFL job this cycle. And, of course, head coach, he's pursued jobs at the next level, last 2 winters. We just said that. He was at one point set to become the next Minnesota Vikings head coach, only to lose out on the job at the last minute. I think that's where he wanted too much power. He pledged to AD Ward Manuel the pursuit of the Vikings job would be his last, but it was not. And so it's understandable why Michigan probably doesn't trust him.
Are you sure?
And they'd like something in writing, not just in words, that Harbaugh won't spend a 3rd January trying to get a different job. The question then becomes what happens if Harbaugh agrees to the terms but doesn't sign the paper? It means he's not going to stick to it.
Hello?
And then it says if Harbaugh interviews for the Carolina Panthers opening, does Michigan reduce the offer or pull it all together? And here's where Richard Johnson put out here with Sports Illustrated, Michigan working on contract extension, etc. So there's so much to unpack here. First of all, you got Harbaugh possibly wanting to go to the NFL as a security blanket in case he gets suspended for a year or 2 or however long by the NCAA. Then you've got Michigan. Are they going to stick with him if he does get suspended? Is that part of the contract, or is there a caveat in there that says, well, if you get suspended, then we don't have to pay you that money? Or are they just saying, look, we'll stick with you however long you're suspended. We'll just stick with you and we'll put an assistant in there that'll coach for you?
Again.
That's a possibility. Now, obviously, if they go that route, they're going to get hammered by the NCAA even more, and they may be willing to do that. They may be willing to say, Jim's our guy. Whatever happens, happens. We don't believe he knew about this anyway, and we'll just take the punishment that comes, which will probably be in the neighborhood of 25 to 35 scholarships, probably a big fine of $10 to $15 million. And I don't think they're going to do the bowl thing, the bowl ban or any of that, but they could do a big-time show cause and suspension of Jim Harbaugh and several coaches. I could see that happening. That's typically the route they go, and it'd probably be a little bit worse if they're sticking with Jim and they don't fire and do all that kind of stuff, which they don't want to do. Michigan does not want to do that. It's very obvious they want to stick with him. And then what if he wins a national title? I mean, there are so many ifs, and would that be vacated later? I cannot begin to tell you how difficult this situation is for Michigan, it is for Harbaugh too. And poor old Connor Stallions, he's over there having to sell used vacuum cleaners to make a living. I don't know what else he's going to do, but at least he's got his vacuums.
I said, don't disturb you. I'm cleaning my room.
But this is a crazy, crazy story. It's almost unbelievable if it didn't appear to be so dadgum true. I mean, it's kind of shocking, and I followed it as much as I possibly can, and I can't get enough of it. What's going to happen here? I mean, this is a soap opera of soap operas. If you've ever seen one, this is exactly like a soap.
And now for the next 30 minutes, as the world turns.
So anyway, we'll see how this plays out. But you would think, I don't know if Jim wants to sit. See, the thing about him, I think he has to coach. I don't think he's willing to sit for a year or two or however long he gets suspended. If he, I know the Michigan fans are out there going, how do you know he's going to get suspended? I don't know. I've watched the NCAA for the last 20, 30 years. I know how they act, and they've changed quite a bit, but they usually go after the coaches. And even if he didn't know, let's say he didn't know, and he might not have. Maybe Connor Stallions is a genius and was able to keep him from finding out. But they did just fire an assistant coach, by the way. But anyway, if he didn't know, maybe he thinks he can survive it or whatever Michigan thinks he can. Michigan's in a tough spot. They can't just totally walk away from the guy, and they're in the college football playoff. They're the #1 ranked team, and they're getting ready to play Alabama. So,
I'm your huckleberry. Why, Johnny Ringo, you look like somebody just walked over your grave.
What a mess. Anyway, I'll stay on top of this. If you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Lets me know to continue to cover the NCAA, my Vols, SEC, and of course this huge story and any other huge story that comes up. And if you've not subscribed, it's on your right, my left. Just hit this little button. It'll help you get my videos. And right over here, the most recent video YouTube thinks you'll enjoy. And we'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.